You have something inside you that terrifies people, not your anger, not your ambition, something deeper, something you've been hiding because you were taught it was too much. Today, I want to talk to you about the side of yourself you've been suppressing your whole life. The part that makes rooms go quiet. The part that makes people uncomfortable. The part you've dimmed down just to make others feel okay. Here's what nobody told you. That intensity isn't your flaw. It's your superpower. And every time you shrink it, you rob the world of something irreplaceable. By the end of this, you'll never apologize for who you are again. I remember sitting in a meeting years ago, holding back everything I wanted to say. I had ideas, strong opinions, but I watched myself shrink, softened my words, made myself smaller so nobody would feel threatened. And afterward, I felt sick, not because I was wrong, but because I betrayed myself to keep others comfortable. That moment taught me something painful. Most of us aren't struggling because we're not enough. We're struggling because we're too much, and we've been punished for it our entire lives. Here's what I've come to understand after decades of studying human behavior. The qualities that make people uncomfortable around you are often the exact qualities that would make you extraordinary. Your intensity, your directness, your refusal to accept mediocrity. These aren't problems to fix, they're powers to unleash. But somewhere along the way, someone convinced you to tone it down, play nice, fit in. And you've been operating at half capacity ever since. Let me show you why the side of you that leaves everyone speechless is the side you need to stop hiding and start honoring. Let me paint a picture for you. You're in a conversation and you see something clearly, a solution, a problem everyone's ignoring, a truth nobody wants to say, and you feel it rising in your chest, that urge to speak up. But then you hesitate, you look around, you calculate how people might react, and slowly, quietly, you swallow it, you nod along, you say something safe instead, something acceptable. Sound familiar? Some of you have been doing this so long you don't even notice anymore. It's automatic, like breathing. You've trained yourself to read every room, sense every mood, and adjust yourself accordingly. Always adapting, always accommodating, always making yourself just small enough to fit. And here's the tragedy. You think you're being considerate. You think you're being mature. But what you're actually doing is abandoning yourself over and over and over again. I know how this feels because I've watched it happen to thousands of people. Brilliant, capable, powerful individuals who've learned to hide their light because somewhere someone told them it was too bright. Maybe it was a parent who said you were too intense. Maybe it was a teacher who called you disruptive. Maybe it was friends who said you were too much. Maybe it was a partner who made you feel like your passion was a problem. And so you learned, you adapted, you dimmed. But here's what happens when you shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You don't just lose opportunities, you lose yourself, piece by piece, year by year, until one day you wake up and don't recognize who you've become. I've met people in their 40s, 50s, 60s who tell me they feel like strangers in their own lives. They built careers they don't care about, relationships that don't fulfill them, lives that look good on paper but feel empty inside. And when we dig into it, the pattern is always the same. At some point, they stopped being themselves. They started being who they thought they should be, who others needed them to be. Listen, the world has a way of punishing people who don't fit the mold. If you're too smart, you make others feel stupid. If you're too driven, you make others feel lazy. If you're too honest, you make others feel exposed. And rather than deal with their discomfort, people will try to change you, shrink you, control you. Some of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You've felt it your whole life. That sense that you're somehow wrong just for being who you are. That your natural way of existing is somehow offensive to others. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. People aren't uncomfortable because something's wrong with you. They're uncomfortable because something's wrong with them. Your light exposes their darkness. Your ambition highlights their complacency. Your authenticity reveals their performance. And rather than face that mirror, they'd rather break it. You're not too much. You've just been around people who are too little. Now, let me challenge something you've believed for far too long. You've been taught that making others comfortable is a virtue. That fitting in is maturity. That dimming your light is kindness. It's a lie, a comfortable lie, but a lie nonetheless. Here's what I've learned from studying human behavior. The people who change the world, who actually leave a mark, are never the ones who fit in. They're the ones who stood out, who refused to shrink, who made people uncomfortable and did it anyway. Think about anyone you truly admire, anyone who's inspired you. Were they pleasant? Were they accommodating? Did they carefully manage everyone's feelings? No. They were intense, uncompromising, often difficult. They had a vision and they pursued it relentlessly. They said what needed to be said, even when it was unpopular. And yes, people were uncomfortable around them. That discomfort wasn't a bug, it was a feature. Let me give you an example. I once worked with an executive who was absolutely brilliant, strategic mind, could see around corners, but she'd spent her entire career softening her delivery because she'd been told she was too aggressive. So she learned to phrase everything as a question, to qualify her statements, to make suggestions instead of declarations. And you know what happened? People stopped listening to her. Her ideas got attributed to others. Her career stalled. When we worked together, I told her something she didn't want to hear. I said, "You're not failing because you're too much. You're failing because you're pretending to be less." It took months, but she eventually stopped apologizing, stopped softening, started showing up as her full self. And within a year, she'd been promoted twice. Here's the mindset shift. Your job isn't to make everyone comfortable. Your job is to be fully yourself and let others adjust. Some of you might be thinking, but Allan, isn't that just being selfish, inconsiderate? Let me answer that directly. There's a difference between being authentic and being cruel. I'm not telling you to bulldoze people. I'm not telling you to ignore social dynamics entirely. What I'm telling you is this: stop pretending to be someone you're not just to avoid making waves. Stop swallowing your truth because someone might not like it. Stop shrinking your dreams because others can't imagine them. That's not kindness, that's self-betrayal dressed up as politics. I struggled with this myself. I spent years being the nice guy, making sure everyone was happy, never rocking the boat, and I was miserable. Successful by external standards, but completely disconnected from myself. My turning point came when I realized something painful. Every time I dimmed my light to make someone else comfortable, I was choosing their comfort over my authenticity. I was telling myself that their feelings mattered more than my truth. And that's a terrible way to live. The shift isn't about becoming arrogant or dismissive. It's about becoming honest with yourself, with others, about who you really are and what you actually want. When you make that shift, when you stop performing and start being, some people will leave. They will. The ones who only like the dimmed version of you won't recognize the full brightness. And that's okay, because the people who matter, the ones who truly deserve to be in your life, they're waiting for the real you to show up. All right, let's get into the practical stuff, because understanding this conceptually is one thing, living it is another. First, identify where you're dimming. Take an honest inventory of your life. Where do you hold back? What do you not say? Which rooms make you shrink? Which people make you smaller? This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. You can't change patterns you can't see. For me, I noticed I dimmed most around people I perceived as more successful. I'd get quieter, less opinionated, more agreeable. Once I saw that pattern, I could start catching myself in the moment and choosing differently. Write this down if you need to. Where specifically are you not being fully yourself? Second, practice micro-authenticity. You don't have to transform overnight. Start small. Share one honest opinion you'd normally hold back. Set one boundary you'd normally let slide. Speak up once when you'd usually stay quiet. These small moments build momentum. Each time you choose authenticity over accommodation, you strengthen that muscle. You prove to yourself that the world doesn't end when you're real. I worked with a guy once who was terrified of conflict, avoided it at all costs. So we started small. Next time someone asked where he wanted to eat, he had to give a real answer. Not, "I don't care," or whatever you want, an actual preference. Sounds silly, right? But that tiny practice changed everything. He realized that stating his truth didn't cause catastrophe. And over time, he built up to bigger truths. Harder conversations. Third, stop apologizing for your intensity. This one's huge. Pay attention to how often you apologize for being yourself. "Sorry, I know I'm being a lot right now. Sorry, I get really passionate about this. Sorry, I know that was too direct." Every apology reinforces the belief that your natural state is wrong, that you need to be forgiven for existing as you are. Stop it. Your intensity isn't a crime. Your passion isn't an offense. Your directness isn't a violation. Instead of apologizing, try owning. Instead of "sorry, I'm being so intense," try "this matters to me." Instead of "sorry for being direct," try "let me be clear." The words you use shape how you see yourself, and they shape how others see you too. Fourth, watch your body language. This is critical. When you're dimming yourself, your body shows it before your words do. Shoulders curve in, eye contact drops. Voice gets quieter, you physically shrink. I've studied this for years. Your body and mind are in constant conversation. When you shrink your posture, you shrink your confidence. When you expand your posture, you expand your presence. So practice taking up space, stand straight, speak at full volume, make eye contact, let your gestures be expansive instead of contained. It feels uncomfortable at first if you're used to shrinking. That discomfort is exactly the point. You're rewiring decades of learned smallness. Fifth, curate your environment ruthlessly. Look at the people around you. Do they celebrate your fullness or punish it? Do they encourage your intensity or try to manage it? You become the average of who you spend time with. If you're surrounded by people who need you small, you'll stay small. It's almost impossible not to. This might mean some hard decisions, spending less time with certain friends, reconsidering certain relationships, leaving environments that require you to shrink. I know that sounds harsh, but here's what's harsher: spending your entire life as a dimmed version of yourself because you were too afraid to change your surroundings. Here's what not to do. Don't use authenticity as a weapon. Some people hear this message and think it gives them permission to be cruel and call it honesty, to be inconsiderate and call it being real. That's not what I'm talking about. Being fully yourself doesn't mean having no filter whatsoever. It doesn't mean ignoring the impact of your words on others. It doesn't mean being deliberately hurtful. What it means is this: stop pretending to be someone you're not. Stop hiding your truth to avoid discomfort. Stop shrinking to fit into spaces that weren't designed for you. There's a difference between being authentic and being an excuse for bad behavior. One comes from self-respect. The other comes from ego. Know the difference. Now let me be straight with you. What I'm describing isn't easy. In fact, it might be one of the hardest things you ever do, because society doesn't reward people who refuse to shrink, at least not at first. When you start showing up as your full self, there will be resistance. There will be pushback. Some people will actively try to put you back in your box. You might lose friends who only like the smaller version of you. You might face criticism for being too much. You might feel isolated and misunderstood. This is the price of authenticity. And I'd be lying if I said it doesn't hurt. I've watched people go through this transformation. The middle part is brutal. You've stopped being the old you, but the new you isn't fully formed yet. You're in the wilderness and it's lonely. Some people give up at this stage. They feel the discomfort and run back to the familiar, back to dimming, back to performing, because at least that's predictable. But here's what I want you to understand. The discomfort is temporary. The regret of never trying is permanent. I met a woman once who was in her 70s. She told me her biggest regret wasn't what she did. It was who she never let herself be. She spent her whole life being what others expected: the good daughter, the perfect wife, the accommodating colleague. And at the end, she felt like she'd never actually lived. I played a role for 70 years, she said, and I don't even know who I would have been if I hadn't. That haunts me. It should haunt you too. The resistance you'll face when you stop dimming is real, but it's nothing compared to the cost of dying with your real self still hidden inside you. Let me tell you what happens on the other side. When you push through the discomfort, when you find your people, when you build a life that actually fits who you are, it's like taking a full breath for the first time. Everything becomes easier because you're not spending energy on performance anymore. You attract opportunities that match who you really are. Your relationships become deeper because they're based on truth instead of pretense. It's worth it. I promise you, it's worth it. So here we are. You've got a decision to make. You can keep dimming, keep shrinking, keep making yourself small enough to fit into spaces that don't deserve you. Keep swallowing your truth so others can stay comfortable. You already know where that leads: more emptiness, more disconnection, more of that quiet desperation that never quite goes away. Or you can choose something different, something terrifying and beautiful and absolutely necessary. You can decide right now that you're done apologizing for who you are, done shrinking, done performing, done being a watered down version of yourself, because the full strength makes people nervous. The side of you that leaves everyone speechless, that's not your problem. That's your power. That's the part of you that was designed to create impact, to leave a mark, to matter. Every great person in history had this quality. They walked into rooms and the energy changed. They spoke and people listened, not because they were loud or aggressive, but because they were undeniably, unapologetically themselves. That's what's available to you right now, today. But you have to choose it. You have to stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the world to be ready for you. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to be yourself. It's okay. More than okay. It's necessary. The world doesn't need another nice, pleasant, forgettable person who never made anyone uncomfortable. The world needs people who are fully alive, fully present, fully themselves. The world needs you, the real you, the one you've been hiding. So here's my challenge. This week, Show up as yourself somewhere you'd normally shrink. Say the thing you'd normally swallow. Take up space you'd normally cede. And when people look at you differently, when they seem uncomfortable or surprised, don't apologize. Don't explain. Just let them adjust, because that reaction, that speechlessness, that's not evidence that you're too much. That's evidence that you're finally enough. That's evidence that you've stopped hiding. That's the moment you become unforgettable.